Welcome to Rock the Crown. Introducing our host, Nafisah, queen about her business in 60. Host Naima, queen get it done and fitness guru. Host Nefarious, queen residential redeveloper and creative director. Host Daia, boss queen biz and youth motivator. All right, Crown Nation, let's get it. Season 2, Rock the Crown.
Welcome to Rock the Crown. I'm Nafisah, your host for today's show. And of course, I have my co-host with me today.
Hey, Nefertari here.
I'm Daia.
And I am Naima. What's up, Crown Nation?
Welcome, Crown Nation, to our episode 5. And today, we're going to talk about the money. Money smarts, the real estate way. Everyone is talking about what's going on in the political realm, and we're going to have a conversation about that in another episode. But don't forget about your money, because your money has got to be right. So to get you started on that road, today we want to talk about money smarts. And we're going to have a general conversation just to give you a general overview of some basic concepts about money. Then we have a special guest who's going to talk about money the real estate way. So to get you all started on that. So we're just excited to bring you this topic because, of course, we all need money to succeed as individuals as well as to advance our community. Not because we want to chase money, but because money is a tool by which we accomplish whatever goals that we want to accomplish for ourselves and for our community, for the country, and for the nation as a whole. It's all predicated on using the tool of money. So to get started, we want to give you an overview. And one of the most important questions that we would like to ask is, why do people want money? Neff, can you give us some highlight on that?
Hey, well, I can tell you right now, I definitely love to have some money, and it makes a difference. Some people say, oh, it don't make a difference. No, money makes a difference. Or money can't make you happy, but it can sure make you feel a lot better, right? So there's different things that we, of course, we need money to live off of, to eat, a place to stay, to have some shelter. A lot of us, but it just kind of depends on how much money you have, on what type of home you live in, or what kind of car you drive. But those are like some of the basic necessities. A lot of times we want to make some money just for that down payment on the house, or to get that car. I have a son who just recently purchased a car, and he was so excited. Like, I've got my first big purchase. So a lot of us are like that, So being young and making that move, he definitely was excited about that. Making trips, taking vacations. Sometimes we may have to just cut that picture out and just dream about it until we can actually make it. So we need money for that. Just pretty much living the good life. So it's like we need to put that plan in motion so that we can think about whatever our goals are to generate that income. Your mic.
That's great in terms of the different motivations that people have for making money. And not only that, but we also think about in terms of thriving as individuals and wanting to build a legacy, a wealth legacy.
Yes,
for our children to inherit. So they're not always starting over. You don't always have each generation starting over. So that is also some motivations of why we want to make more money. We also want to talk about how much do we want to make? Do we just only want to make enough to survive, or do we want to make enough to thrive?
Right.
Naima, why don't you talk to us about how much money do we need to make?
So Nafisa, talking about how much money you need to make, to me, is a relative topic.
Right.
So people understand money according to their socioeconomic status. That's just the reality of it. And so when we start talking about money, how much money do people need to make? But oftentimes it's not what they need to make. People think of money in terms of how much they want to make. Because often your needs and your wants sometimes really don't gel up when it comes to money, right? Our wants always supersede what we need. So start thinking about your socioeconomic class. So, there are people who, when you think about $1 million, it's like, oh, it's $1 million, right? But then there's some people, when you think about $1 million, it's like, that's a drop in the bucket for them. And so money is relative, again, to your socioeconomic status. And so when we also start thinking about building wealth, you were talking about building wealth and legacy. Most people that have been in a socioeconomic status that has some deprivation in it don't even think of wealth. They're not even thinking of legacy. They're thinking of day-to-day expenses. How can I just get through the day? How can I just have enough money for food on the table, enough money to pay my lights, enough money to pay my car insurance so that I can go to work, enough money so that I can maybe purchase some clothes. And then from that level, you go up a little bit. And so when people start having a little bit of cushion, what happens is they don't necessarily begin to think of it in terms of like, oh, let me save this. They then begin to use that money in another way. So then they're putting themselves back at a disadvantage. So, oh, okay, I have more money now. So instead of staying in that nice apartment that they've had for $900 a month, then they want to move and get something for $1,500 a month. And then once again, they're back at a disadvantage. Or, you know what, I've had this car, now that I'm making more money, I want to get a new car. And so what we have to begin to do is think about money and how relative it is in terms of like, do we save? Do we want to save? And are we looking to the beyond future? Not just like future as in, oh, what Never Terry was talking about, I want to go on this vacation and I need to save $5,000 to do that. No, we need to think of beyond that in terms of like, what do my children need? What do my future children need? And this is something that really, again, goes back to socioeconomic status. So if you've never been taught anything about money, so when a penny to you means absolutely nothing, that has a big bearing on what to do with that money. So making sure that we're teaching our children that even saving a penny a day begins to build wealth. And I think there was an experiment that a couple of years ago, a lot of people were passing around saying, hey, if you save a quarter a day as a child when they're 6 years old, and then by the time they're 18, it would matriculate into over thousands and thousands of dollars, which would allow for them to pay for their college. Well, that's what we also need to think about, even as adults, when we're spending and having money, no matter what your economic status, people can save money. And something that I think is very, very, very important as African-American people, we think that we don't have money. We have the mindset that we think that we are poor. But in reality, we are the largest group of people that spend the most amount of wealth, right? We spend it in terms of buying power, African-American people, right? And another way that we spend the most amount of wealth, unfortunately, is through the prison system. So when you start thinking about how African-American people spend the most amount of money and have to maintain their lives or their families' lives inside of prison, those two properties of money create the biggest amount of wealth in the world. And if we just begin to reshift how we think about money, man, you're talking about really being rich. We would really be rich. and just making sure that when we're spending money, that we're allocating it in a way that it continues to rebuild wealth. And so in the words of We Buy Black, because you know I'm about to say that, right? Remove, replace, and rebuild. But rebuilding the wealth is using it in a way where we're using small amounts, but we're building upon that and then creating this large wealth pool that I know us as a people, we can do.
Right, right. Thank you so much for that, Naima. And that reminds me also of a quote when you're talking about where we spend our money and how we spend our money. It says, don't tell me where your priorities are. Show me where you spend your money, and I'll tell you where your priorities are. So where we spend our money reveals where our priorities are. And so we want to look at that. And another thing too, when we're talking about how much money, it may be relative, but we need to have a number. When you say, I want to make a lot of money, what's a lot? Are we talking about $1 million? And what are you trying to accomplish with that money? Not just in terms of things, right? But also in terms of freedom.
Right.
In terms of self-sufficiency for your family, for the community. We can think whatever we want to think about money, but you can't build a community without it.
Right.
You just can't. You always be relying on someone else. So there's different ways to generate money. So what are the different vehicles that people can use to generate money? Of course, we can have all kind of sessions on that, but Daia, you want to help us just highlight some different ways that people can use and are using to make money?
Absolutely. Yeah. So in today's time, many people are very skilled, and we're skilled at multiple things. So of course you have the people who work but people who work a 9 to 5. So these are people who are employed, they have an employer, they report at certain times. A lot of these people work in the medical field, they may work in the entertainment fields, you kind of come to work. And then, education, IT, and marketing, these are all very strong jobs, very strong careers that people, go and educate themselves and come out and make money, earning money in those departments. You also have your business owners. So you have your business owners who have started their own business. They most times will have employees under them.
Right.
And they are considered, business owners, and they definitely contribute to the society by creating jobs. You have a lot of people who work in the entertainment field, so they often, work in providing us with those movies. We have Tyler Perry, one of the biggest movie productions here in Atlanta. So we have, those are all different ways of making money. And most people like to also, kind of diversify and have different vehicles of making money. Myself, I'm a business owner. I do bookkeeping, but I also work a 9 to 5. So I go into work, I have a 9 to 5, and then I have a business where I hire people, who perform those bookkeeping tasks for me. So that's another way, that people, are now learning how to have different streams of income, which definitely helps you to reach some of those goals that Nefertari talked about and Naima talked about. So in addition to that, people often invest in stocks. So they invest in the stock market, they kind of use their money to make money. So that's also a great tool because it's something that you don't have to do. It's just money that just comes in. It's not, you let your money work for you. Right. So those are, a couple of different ways, and I'm sure that there's more. There's many, many other ones that I just left off, but, we all kind of, we go and we train and we get our skills, we develop our skill set so that we can use those skill sets to make money to provide for our families. And I always tell my children, when you learn more, you earn more. So if you're okay with working at McDonald's, then son, you know what, you can stop at the 11th grade, no problem. But if you want to earn more, you need to learn more, and that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to, a higher education institution. It could mean that you're picking up a book. It could mean that you're going on somebody's work site and you're training under a master plumber, you're training under a master electrician. So there are many, many jobs, especially here in America, that we're able to do and that are really needed. So that's some of the ways that, vehicles that people use to make money. So I hope that was, effective. But yeah,
Yes.
so that's my take on some of the vehicles. What are some of your thoughts?
Thank you so much, Dair, for that. And not only that, in terms of your son working at McDonald's, he can work his way up to own the McDonald's. Okay, so let's not forget about that. In terms of, there's opportunities everywhere around us to make money. It's just a matter of us being focused. And let's not also forget about the gig economy, right? Which is getting more and more larger as more and more people seek not just side hustles, but when you talk about doing Uber, starting a business on the side, using social media to make money, there's a whole generation in terms of the millennials and the younger ones who are trying to use social media as a way to make money too. So that's also, those are also some ways that people are making money. And one of the most lucrative ways to make money is through real estate. And that's how we're going to get started today, by bringing in our special guest who uses money to buy real estate, redevelop real estate. And he has been doing this for over 10 years now. And he's going to talk to us about money smarts, the real estate way. So we want to give a huge welcome to Mr. Bilal today, who we're going to talk to. Everybody.
Bilal, what's good?
Awesome.
Yes, he's from Kansas City. So we're going to have a great time. He's going to tell us all about this real estate game. Of course, we can talk about this for years and years and years. And I'm sure he's done many seminars talking about how to build wealth in real estate. But we only got a few minutes on this show. So he's just going to give us the highlights. He's just going to give us the highlights. But Bilal, so just tell us a little bit about your journey to real estate investing.
Yeah. First and foremost, assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam.
First and foremost, I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you young ladies, just doing an absolutely amazing, wonderful thing in our community. I've watched your show a couple of times, and it's been hilarious, funny, very informative at the same time. So may Allah continue to keep blessing you all with in your endeavors and everything that you guys are doing, for sure. And I'm very humbled and honored to be your guest for today. So
Thank you.
My journey, it started where after college, I went into the workforce. I said, what can I do to really make an impact on the community? Right. And I was a bit of a sports junkie too. I played football, etc. So an opportunity came up, and where I could get into something that had an adrenaline rush, and at the same time I can serve my community. So I became a firefighter, and I enjoyed it. I loved it. I love giving back to the community. Had an opportunity to, save some lives, rescue a few cats right along the way. And, even though I enjoyed it, I quickly realized though that there was a ceiling, there was a cap on how much I could make.
Right.
And I remember speaking to someone who I consider to be very, very successful. And they told me, they said, if you want to invest in your financial education. Mm-hmm. And I started to study what wealthy people were doing. And I quickly realized that the wealthiest people in this country, they were investing in real estate. Right? They either made their money on the debt side, whether they're lending their money passively, or they invested their money or made their money on the equity side, whether they're redeveloping, buying whole, etc. So I started studying, I started looking, I said, okay, well, the wealthiest people, how do they make their money? They either made their money through other businesses and they take their earnings and invest it in the real estate, whether it's in the entertainment industry, whether it's in some of those industries that sister mentioned, IT, marketing, whatever it may be, or they made their money in real estate. So I told myself, this is something that I definitely need to get into. That and real estate is really, it's like any other industry that's out Everyone, like if you're in corporate America, as an example, everyone in corporate America, you wanna go up that corporate ladder, right? In order to get a raise or get a promotion or increase your earning potential, right?
Right.
In order to do that, you have to usually you have to improve your skill set, right? Is
Right.
a raise just given to you?
Right.
Probably not, right? So you have to
Right.
do something in order to get that. Now, I ask you ladies this, on average, on a percentage basis, what is an average raise in America on a percentage basis?
Probably about 3%.
Mm, I love to guess that guess is right.
Yeah.
It's 3%, right? On average, the average raise is 3%. So now, as we talked about, is that raise is automatic limit. So you have to do something in order to get there. Usually, you have to improve your skill set. Well, first and foremost, you have to go above and beyond your peers, right? In order to get it. But then you usually have to improve something, right? You may have to go back to school, maybe get another degree,
Right.
maybe attend some type of training classes, some Zoom or whatever, right? That we got going
Right.
because of COVID. So whatever that looks like, right? So after all of that, then if you're blessed, you get rewarded 3%. So let's put that in perspective. Let's say if you make $100,000 a year, which unfortunately the average everyday person doesn't make. But let's say you make that. Well, 3% of that is what? $3,000.
Right.
Is $3,000 like life changing for any of you all extra a year?
No.
Probably not, right? So, and I looked at, said, okay, well, I can go out and trust me, I got my college education as well, so no knock to that. But I said, okay, I can go back to grad school, go get my doctorate and all that, or I could maybe take some of my earnings and start investing in my financial education. I started looking at it from a different perspective. Say, I can go out there. It takes me getting educated because I got to get educated, right?
Right.
Still got to spend time. I got to spend money, etc. But as a whole, when I look at it on a return basis, I could either go buy and redevelop a house. I could wholesale. I could
Right.
even spend my money. I can have a property passively for its rental. But on a percentage basis, is that a lot more than 3%?
Mm-hmm.
The answer for me was like 100%, right? So
Right.
when I looked at real estate, we're really in a business of turning money. That's what real estate really is, right? Real estate has very, very little to do with real estate. Real estate is taking a short position on the U.S. dollar.
Right. 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 Right.
I'm sure that's probably a long answer.
Right. Right, but that's good because it's good for people to know too how you got to that place of wanting to invest in real estate, right? Because everybody has a story and people can relate to different aspects of your story. When you're talking about, you working as a firefighter, most of us have worked in regular types of jobs even before we became entrepreneurs at some point,
Right.
so we can relate to that and our audience can relate to that or coming to that realization. And when we finally got the job or out of college or whatever, and we finally got the job that we've been working for, and you're like, wait a minute, this money is not doing what I thought this money would do for me.
Yeah.
Right. This 75,000 I'm making, this ain't what I envision this doing with me. After you get your taxes, the taxpayer get their piece, right?
Right.
So, but in terms of real estate too, what I also want you to touch on for us or let us know is the different types of real estate investing, because also too, what I found, and a lot of us in this COVID era, where so many more of us are online more hours of the day. And I know I see a lot of different advertisements or ads about real estate investing, and they're all talking all kind of stuff like multifamily, residential, commercial, single family homes. I mean, can you just give us like a brief little education on the different types of real estate investing?
Sure. Like real estate is very, very broad. I mean, it's almost like if you looked at the medical field, right? Well, the medical field is very broad too, right? You have doctors specialize in different things. So, but if you break it down on real estate, is really you have, I would say you have active income, right? Active income is something that you have to actively do, right, in order to make money. For most people, they need a job, right? They need a job. They don't go actively do that, then they don't get paid. Well, in real estate, our active income is actually like rehabbing properties or what we call wholesaling. Wholesaling is where you may get a property at a significant discount and then you just flip the paper. You're signing that contract over to someone who's going to redevelop the property. So that's the active side of the business with real estate. Um, and then you have passive income. Passive income is where I don't have to do anything within the business. Like the business is generating money for me without me having to go to work, right? So as an example, that could be a rental property, right? So I don't have to physically do anything.
Right.
You know, like what I've been taught too, like, I'm not a property manager. I'm an investor. So I hire a property management company to manage your property. So you don't have to deal with the day-to-day, things that people tend to do when they're landlords, So
Right.
now I'm making money passively when I have that, right? And then you have what is called legacy income. And that's when, a person may lend their money out. But you have so those are really the three income streams. But in that, there's a lot of varieties of that. When it comes to residential, you have commercial, and you talked about multi-family, properties, which is commercial. That's any property that's 5 or more. So anything that's 4 or less is considered residential. And with that, again, you could wholesale a commercial property. You can hold on to it. Commercial, you have land, you have commercial, you have apartment buildings, which I absolutely love is apartment buildings. Retail is actually doing really great right now too in certain industries or certain areas, despite what's going on right now with COVID.
Right.
You have office, buildings, industrial business. So there's a lot of different things when it comes to real estate as a whole. So.
Okay, great. And what would you say? What area do you focus in on, and why?
Yeah, I would say majority of people when they get started, they focus on the residential side, right? There's a little bit less zeros involved on the residential side.
Right.
So it's quicker to kind of get into. And I started, with rehabbing or, a lot of the shows that you see on TV, someone, what's considered a flipper or someone flips a house where they rehab it and then put it back on the market for resale. So that's what we do. We also do a lot of wholesaling, increasing my passive income portfolio, but also getting into the commercial industry and for the last couple of years now too. So, and for me, commercial is more so on commercial syndication deals on the retail side and the multi-family side. So not too much when it comes to, or not at all when it comes to like office buildings or industrial buildings.
Okay. So you basically focus on the residential side in terms of making sure somebody has a place to live.
Residential, yes, but commercial too. Commercial is, love commercial. Commercial is judged differently, than residential. Residential is based off of what we consider, your comparables, whereas commercial is based off of the revenue that it produces. So a couple little tweaks, you can increase the property value drastically by just doing a few commercials. So
Great. So what would you say to, I know many of our listeners may have thought about investing in real estate, maybe even, dove into it or got their feet wet a little bit or whatever. What would you say in terms of if someone wanted to get started, what's the best way for them to get started?
Well, the number one thing that I would say, and it's funny because I've been very blessed and I've been able to travel really all around the country, and we do events, on real estate investing and financial education, et cetera.
Right.
But the number one thing I would say is, earlier I talked about real estate really has very little to do with real estate per se, but it's taking a short position on the US dollar. And what I mean by that is that how we think about money, how we perceive money, how we borrow money, how we leverage money will determine your financial future, right? How we've been taught about money up until this point has created our current financial situation.
Right.
I was reading, I'm sorry, not reading, but I was watching a documentary, this was a couple of years ago, and it always stuck with me. And it said, like the money that you make or that you earn will determine where you live. And where you live will determine where your children go to school. Where your children go to school will determine their higher level of education. Their higher level of education will determine their lifelong earnings. And their lifelong earnings will determine where they live. Where they live will determine where your grandchildren go to school.
Right.
So you see the cycle.
Cycle, right.
Right? You know, and we kind of, you kind of alluded to that a little earlier. I think it was Naima, and talking about just the cycle of how we're at, this wealth building. And but here's the other thing with that, is that 80% of Americans, 80% of millionaires who are Americans in this country, that money was not passed down to them.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning that they didn't have like parents or a parent teaching them like the concepts of money, right?
Mm-hmm.
They went out and they sought, they seeked, the right proper information, financial education, right? So that is the number one thing I would tell people, is you have to go out there and seek proper financial education, right? Because unfortunately, and whether it's by design, I personally think it is, it's not taught in school, right? We're not taught, the most I think was taught, and I don't even think it was taught in school, I think my father taught me, but it was like how to balance a checkbook,
Mm-hmm.
but
Right.
things
Economics. Yeah.
Yeah, right. You go to get economic, right?
They don't have that class anymore.
Right. Yeah. See, right. And and if you major in something, they teach you a little bit of something, but they don't teach you like how money works. This may be going off subject a little bit, but I don't think it is. But last time I did a workshop, in front of a group of people was the first of the quarter. And it was obviously COVID, so we had to kind of slow things down, to them. But I was looking at one of the things that I had wrote, and it was a flip chart, and it had a financial statement. And just like you and I have a financial statement, your home has a financial statement, your home, we all have a financial statement. Income that comes in, expenses goes out. Our assets, our liability. Well, guess what? Our government has a financial statement. Right. And at the time, the income was coming. Let me ask you ladies this: how does our country make money? Taxes, right? They like to tax us, right?
Right,
so
right.
That's the income that comes in. At that moment, this is pre-COVID now. At that moment, the income that our country was bringing in was $3.5 trillion, right? Sounds like a lot of money. However, our expenses was $4.5 trillion.
Right.
So that's a $1 trillion difference, right? What's $1 trillion between friends, right? Nothing, right? Right? So $1 trillion. Now we look at our liabilities. Our liabilities at that time was $19 trillion. Okay, and I know I'm throwing a lot of numbers out, but $19 trillion. Our unfunded liabilities was $127 trillion. Right? Unfunded liabilities are things like Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid,
right.
Things that we promise to pay, but we don't
promise to pay. Right.
Right.
Right. All right. So that's pre-COVID. Fast forward to now. I literally just went on here before we started this, and I was like, I wonder where we're at as a country, because we can watch the news, they can tell us all kind of things, but hey, like we can literally see.
Where are we? Right.
Right now, the income that we have coming in is $3 trillion. So 500 billion less, right? We got 3 trillion coming in, but our expenses are now $6.1 trillion, right? Before I said 4.5, so 6.1. Our liabilities now are $26 trillion. It was 19. And our unfunded liabilities is 154 versus 127. So looking at all that, because we're looking at it from a macro economic standpoint.
Right, right.
Looking at that, how is our dollar doing? Like if I were to ask you all this right now, yeah, right? If I was to ask you all this, when you were in high school, when you went to the movies,
right?
Did the movie cost for the ticket? Was it higher or was it lower then?
It wasn't $20. Okay, we were going to the movies for $5. Okay,
$5, right? So it was much less. What about gas? Higher or lower?
Oh, it was lower, man. I remember even in the 90s, gas was 70 cents.
Yeah,
right.
Like our parents, 79 cents.
We sound like our parents. So gas was 26 cents.
Exactly. Right? The cost of all these different things, right? Now, did the cost go up or did the value of the dollar, did it go down?
It's the value of the dollar went down.
Dollar's going down, right? So, ever since, 70s when Nixon took us off the gold standard, money, like, I don't know if I have, yeah, like money, and this is not no attempt to kind of show you anything, but all this is paper.
Right.
Right, and read what's on it and
Not
what
backed
it say on it.
Right? Not backed by anything, right? And
Right.
they just print it.
Right.
Print, the value of it keeps going down. So real estate, when I talked about, like, real estate is taking a short position on the US dollar, meaning that we know that the value of this money is going down. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to leverage that. I'm going to take it and I'm going to borrow as much as I can, and I'm going to leverage it for something that I know that's going to go up.
Right.
And that's what I mean by financial education, because everything stems from that. So if someone wants to get into real estate, it has very little to do with real estate. It's about knowing more and more and more about financial education.
Right. And really, we could have this conversation all day, all night, all week.
But I was like, I'm opening the class again. Y'all ready?
Right, exactly.
I'll be down in Atlanta tomorrow. We can
right.
Hopefully get the mind shit and everything.
Right, exactly. In terms of talking about money and all of this, what it says to me, when you were talking about the government, sometimes at these macro levels, sometimes when we look at stuff at a macro level, like, it's important to know that, but we can't get so focused on that, because what it told me when you were talking, which is what I try to talk about a lot, is that we need to be more self-sufficient and self-reliant, right? And self-determined, not self as in selfish, but in terms of our own families, in terms of, because you don't know where the country is going. And so the more that you can depend on yourself and your families and your own community, and the less, whether who's in president or not affects you, right? Because if I own my own land, if I have my own water wells on my land, if I have solar energy, right, then I'm less dependent on a lot of stuff that who's in office. As a community, if we have that, we're less dependent. So this idea of investing in real estate is, to me, is also a way for us to become self-sufficient in true financial freedom, and that we should maybe divert more of our focus to investing in this way. Not to say we shouldn't vote, because we definitely should vote to be able to have a voice. But I'm saying it needs to be a balance in our focus towards moving towards self-sufficiency, self-determination. And what Bilal shared with us today was, of course, his money nuggets, but also real estate as a vehicle to accomplish that financial freedom and to set us on the course of self-sufficiency as individuals, as our family, and as a community. And we could definitely bring him back again in the future for more in-depth discussion and more in-depth ways to actually accomplish that. And we're also going to have more speakers to come on too, because we really want to move our community in this direction, termed self-sufficiency and becoming truly financially free. So I want to thank you again, Bilal, for joining us on our show, Rock the Crown. And of course, our co-host today, right? Rock the Crown. And we want to thank you, Crown Nation, for tuning in again for another episode in our second season. We just love you, and we want you again to comment. Send us comments in the section. Let us know what you thought about this episode. If you want us to have more episodes where we talk about money and how to make money and financial freedom, let us know some other upcoming topics that you might want us to focus on, and maybe a different perspective that you might want us to explore, because we are here to serve you and serve the community and really elevate us in terms of us accomplishing our goals. So we want to thank you and ask you to join us on our social media, Facebook, YouTube, and I'll forget because I'm not the social media person. So
hey, before we go, let's find out from Bilal how we can contact him or how we can follow him.
Exactly.
Oh yeah, for sure. You could You can follow me on those platforms as well. Bilal Hazziez on Facebook. Instagram is Bilalian06. And you can find me on Instagram as well too. You can always DM me. People do that a lot, and we can exchange information over there. And feel free to reach out anytime. I'm an open book. I feel like there's a not just a necessity, but there's an obligation for us to to make each generation better than what we had. And um, you know, one of the things that even come to mind with, the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said that, live your life as if, today will be the end of you, but live your life as if you'll live forever. That means that we need a plan as if we no longer would be here,
Right.
and set things up now. Oftentimes, when we leave this earth and we pass, I was watching the same documentary that I mentioned before. They asked the question, if you were to die today, will you leave bills or benefits? Right. That's a question that we all should ask ourselves, right? Because we shouldn't want to leave bills. We should want to leave benefits.
Right.
And, secondly, live your life as if you live forever. I mean, that's generational, right? Generational wealth, and it's not about also just what we leave them, but what we leave in them too.
Right. And thank you so much again for joining our show. Do we have any closing comments from any of our co-hosts before we close out the show today?
Yeah, Daya. Daya, did you want to come on?
I think I was just going to mention about Brother Bilal's contact information. So you already did. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And again, thank you, Crown Nation, for joining us. And make sure you tune in to our next episode of Rock the Crown.
Peace out, everybody.
Assalamu alaikum. Peace.